Purpose specification. This is where you're trying to be clear in your notice what your authorities are for collecting this data, whether it's a statute, executive order, some other type of internal directive, and again, the purposes for which the PII is going to be used. Data minimization and retention. I think we all know that means don't keep data any longer than you need to, and don't collect what you don't need. And we know in government, there is a tendency to take in a little bit more than we may need for our mission. And the last few years, we've seen a real push to get away from that and only collect what you need. But it then goes back to your mission. What are you going to need it for today? What are your specific purposes? And what might you need it for down the road? But don't get too blue sky. Really keep practical about it, because the less PII you have on hand, obviously that reduces the risk. The next four control families or principles: use limitation. Okay, now you've got your public notice out there, whether it's a PIA, a SORN, an online privacy policy. That's your privacy promise to the public. So you want to make sure you're living up to that, and you are only using that PII for what you've told the public. And you're only sharing it for purposes that are compatible with the purposes that you've identified and notified the public about, because if not, you may have to go through and get consent from individuals to go through another sharing process or a new sharing process. And that might just mean going through an update of your system of records notice, but that can take a lot of time. In my agency, to update a SORN, it could possibly take 6 months to a year. Data quality integrity, that's about making sure the data is relevant and accurate, and that's particularly important in a place like DHS and SSA and FDIC, where we're making determinations about people, about whether or not to fulfill a claim or allow somebody to board an airplane. Security, that's where we really intersect with our security colleagues, and we want to make sure the data is locked down through the very robust risk management framework that NIST has developed. And accountability and auditing. This is where you want to make sure you have not only your CIPP and Chief Privacy Officer identified, but you really have resources within the organization to implement a robust privacy program and to make sure that they're putting in place all of the policies and procedures, they're doing the training and awareness that needs to be done, and they're ensuring that auditing is being performed, whether it's internal self-assessments to hiring third parties to come in and make sure you are living up to your privacy promises. So with that, I'm going to conclude and turn it over to Bud. If I can see this. Oh, I'll just summarize. There is an interagency effort going on to do all this, and it's still going on. And you're more than welcome to join it. Let's see. Yep. Yeah, it's hard to see. It's a little bit faded on the screen. I think we can escape. Yeah, bear with me, I'm going to go through.
It's kind of like church, huh? Y'all come up to the front here.
Yep, no, every time I hit the screen, it wants to jump back. Let me hit that again.
It was coming.
Yeah.
Oh, this is numbers.
It's every time I hit the screen, it's jumping. I'm trying to get it over there. There we go. Oh.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we got it. We have the technology. Pretty cool. Well, my name's Bud Horton, Henry Horton, for those of you that know me more formally. But I really appreciate GTRA for having me. Enjoyed December session. It was great. And asked for more pain to come back. But I've been out on travel for the last month, and I apologize to my fellow panelists who've been calling me all the time trying, where is he? Does he exist? But I'd like to take a few minutes. I am the outlier of the group. I am not a privacy official at an agency. I have supported each one of these agencies in one form or another. Right now I've got U.S. Visit under my belt. But basically I manage the security and some of the privacy activities within Accenture. And Accenture is one of these organizations that's 187,000 people globally. So we're in every country of the world but maybe one that I can think of. And one of the things that we did do recently, we did put together a survey of our clients. And so I've got a survey, I'll hit a couple of slides, very high level, about some of the findings of that survey. It's very interesting. But one of the things that they did ask me to talk about just briefly is what to do about moving or trying to evolve a culture of privacy whenever we're trying to stay in an open environment. So I did put some thoughts up here just for, I'm going to echo a lot of what my colleagues here have already said. Some of the issues, though, I think that we need to do, and we've heard touches on each one of these things, the idea of merging, or at least getting very close to the security community, the privacy community, talking to the security people and talking to the IT. So you have this golden triangle that needs to be developed. Right now, what you have to kind of translate a lot of this stuff back and forth. In the EU, they've always had security and privacy as separate entities. And that's something that we need to start moving to, and that's starting to happen here in the States as well. But the idea that we have to basically have this symbiotic relationship between the golden triangle. Otherwise, you're going to lose control. You can have all the policies in the world written out, but until it's implemented effectively, it's not going to help the organization. So the idea of basically of developing a life cycle, I was talking to Jonathan about that during one of the breaks. You need to start translating to the IT community about a life cycle. Not just the data life cycle, but understanding how the system works as well and where that data falls through the cracks. So system interconnectivity is a problem. If you think that a CIO has control of the agency's data, you're sadly mistaken. Because now we have Blackberries, we have Blueberries, we have iPhones, we have all this stuff that's out there, and then the social media impact. There are more points right now that are leaking agency information that just the policy people can't keep their good handle on it. It's really tough to do. So system interconnectivity needs to be taken into effect when you start talking about PIAs. You need to know where that data is going and where it's coming from. Mobility, that's that same theme along that line. A CNA, a certification and accreditation, doesn't address a lot of privacy issues. So we need to make sure that privacy is interjected into the CNA process when these systems are being accredited. It's borderless. Right now, IT and the internet and many of the other type of connectivities that we have around the world, it's borderless. A server sitting here in the United States is actually affecting systems abroad. And that's the same for our systems. Our internet systems are actually sitting in Brazil and other places of the world. So when you start thinking about a PIA, and you start thinking about where data is going and what's happening to it, you need to think about it being borderless. And how do I control that? How do we restrict that, or how do we protect that? There's other things in the IT space that we have to start thinking about when you start thinking about privacy. You already mentioned, Jonathan mentioned the cloud. Cloud computing is moving to that. IT guys love to get their hands on the latest technology and do something new with it. But how can we in the privacy community stay abreast of those changes? So who is training our privacy people on how to stay abreast of this? So training and awareness of the organization internally, but also of their own policy directors and the privacy people of what's coming down the path. I dare say that there's very many privacy people actually that know what the latest and greatest applications that are being moved into the organization. So that connectivity with the golden triangle really needs to occur. PII understanding. Folks, I gotta tell you, I move across a lot of agencies in the government, and it's not anything specifically wrong with the government, but I gotta tell you, there's a lot of people that interpret what PII is in different ways. Every agency does differently because of their mission is different. Their organization, their systems are different. Well, I take that and I magnify that 20 times in the commercial sector, and where the interface of the critical infrastructure starts to touch the government infrastructure, that's a real problem. So we in the government infrastructure, our own defense industrial base and the critical infrastructure and those contractors and vendors that support the government, what are we doing to protect PII, and how does it affect the mission of the organization?